It essentially is that feeling of being a kid and going to summer camp.
Unlike any conference that I've ever been to, it's high energy, it's fun, it's engaging.
Most conferences, you just go and sit, and that's fine, right? You're getting information out of it. I love the interactions and the activities that we do with Chart, because that's where the energy comes to light.
And I continue to have that reaffirming feeling every time I go, this is where I'm supposed to be, because I get so much out of it.
The more you go, the deeper the relationships get.
You leave there just feeling so motivated and hitting the ground running when you come home.
For me, why do I keep going back? Stay ahead of the trend and recharge my battery. Like, that's just really what it comes down to.
On this episode of the Simplified podcast, we dive deep into the CHART conference. It's the Council for Hotel and Restaurant Trainers, and it's a conference for these trainers. And there's something about this conference. I don't know how to explain it. And so hopefully by the end of this episode, we get a little sense of what makes this different. There are a lot of conferences out there for folks in training or training professionals, but I promise you, this one feels different. We talked to a bunch of people that both run the conference and also just attended it to get a sense of what they think makes it so special. And we'll attempt to distill that by the end of this. But before we jump into that, let's learn a little bit about what this conference is and kind of the origins of it.
As you look back on Chart, it's been around for 50 years. And, it was created so people in the training industry could come together for these forums that are educational, right? And really develop as stronger leaders.
It's a complete volunteer-led organization. Everybody is volunteering their time. It's a nonprofit. And so you're getting people that are doing it for the love of the game, which doesn't really exist in other venues or arenas because it's all for profit. And ultimately, they're just there to make a quick buck. Whereas Chart, we just had our 105th conference in Charlotte. It's been around for ages, 2 conferences a year. And you start thinking about it like, man, this goes back quite a while. And this has lasted this long just based off of this volunteer-led and run mindset that it has.
So Chart's been around for a long time, and it's led by volunteers. There's lots of organizations like that, though. So what is it that makes Chart and the experience of being there so different?
I've been to tons of different conferences from different associations, different organizations and stuff like that. Oftentimes you feel like you're one of the masses, just one person in a crowd. Chart is not like that at all.
It's a few hundred people, whereas some of these other ones can be thousands of people. And so I think you get that much more personalized sense of attention, whether it's your first time or your 20th time.
Compared to some of the massive shows, it's a little bit smaller of an attendee list, but it is the most impactful because you actually get to spend time with all of the attendees in a variety of settings.
It's definitely small and more intimate than a lot of other conferences that you go to. So I can vouch for that based on my experience there. What I wanted to learn though is that the goal? Are they trying to grow this thing to be as big as it can possibly be? Or is this intentional to keep it the size that it currently is?
Looking at membership numbers isn't necessarily the priority because, again, you might have tons of members, but if folks aren't getting a lot out of it, who cares? It just doesn't matter. The benefit, though, to additional members is being able to have additional experiences that come in. So hopefully it enhances that membership experience that individuals have as a part of Chart.
So it's not just about increasing membership, it's finding the right members. That's good to hear. And that makes sense why it's so narrowly focused, but everybody that's there feels meaningful and feels important and it feels personalized for those folks. But I also think there's something that's different about this conference because when you go to a conference that's created by and hosted by people that live and breathe hospitality every day, it also has a little bit of a different feeling to it than other conferences.
I had tried going to other training conferences too, to learn more from other industries. And what I found was just when it comes to hospitality and the hospitality industry, there's nothing that competes on this level because you were getting that real-time information about what the entire industry is going through in the format that you need to train it, deploy it, and teach it.
And what's also unique is that there's a lot of different conferences, if you will, focused more on the breadth of training. Think of ATD or I think of others. And they're great within those areas, if you will. But then a unique thing about Chart is that we are very tailored and very specific to the unique challenges of the hospitality industry and being able to solve those challenges as a group.
This isn't some company that we paid to come in and put on a conference. This isn't some, corporation with a bunch of faceless people. These are people who are going back to their hotel and restaurant jobs every single day. That is their full-time job, but they still devote time and attention and their own, resources into making this an incredible experience for everybody there. And absolutely, this is managed by the people who do the same thing as me, and it feels right.
Where it's really by trainers for trainers, whether you're in the hotel industry or the restaurant industry, whether you're corporate owned or franchised, it doesn't matter. There's still so many things that we're all going through and all battling day in and day out.
I love the fact that what we do, all the content that's around these conferences, were built by trainers for trainers. And I think that's what makes the difference.
So what exactly does it look like when trainers build conferences for other trainers? Let's hear how they approach it.
The summer conference and the winter conference are two totally different experiences. And they're both fantastic, but they accomplish different things. So the winter conference is traditionally a little bit smaller as far as people that are able to attend. But through the winter conference, it's really all about competencies.
We have 4 tracks, so it's really awesome. We have a trainer track, an instructional design track, manager, and then executive. And it's, again, all the different skill sets that are necessary for somebody to really thrive in the training industry.
The nice thing about the competencies is it opens up your horizons and your mind into other facets of the discipline. So if you come up and you're a field trainer, as an example, perhaps you're not as versed in the instructional design component of training. We have an instructional design component of it. Or you come up and you're an instructional designer and you want to know more about presentation and how to be effective in the classroom. There's different components that are built into the competencies within the winter track, so that we hopefully get to the point of having the breadth, if you will, of the profession versus just simply being the depth.
You kind of pick things based on where you are in your job role right now. So with this being my third one, I've already completed the executive and training tracks with them. But when I completed them, I took them in. I didn't just take them in completion at one time. I kind of picked courses based on what I need to learn at that time. So like this time around, I took project management, development courses, because that's kind of where I am in my role now compared to where I was 2 years ago when I attended my first chart conference.
Summer is a little bit more of a grab bag where it's a ton of different breakout sessions that are really all just led by people within the industry and members of Chart that have something that they want to give or something that they want to share, or maybe best tips and tricks or practices.
All of the content that's feeding in to our summer conference specifically is from members. So you're seeing the best practices, and usually it's learnings that folks have had of like, hey, we were struggling with whatever it is, turnover. We were struggling with the amount of time it took to become proficient within the training program. When you look at it, it's here's what I did to solve that. Here's some of the best practices I have, and here's how you potentially could connect.
It's just nice to see what everyone else is doing. So whether you're speaking to someone from a company that's fully established, like they may have already done what I'm currently working on, so they can give me a lot of insight as to how they've done it, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and vice versa. I've met people who are in companies that are even a little smaller, and they're looking to grow, or they're looking to, develop a new way of doing a daily procedure. So it's just constantly sharing those ideas, and it's just really inspiring to see what other people are doing.
There's definitely 2 different experiences that you get to attend between the winter and the summer conference. But what I loved was hearing people talk more about the way that conferences were designed. I've been to a ton of conferences where you're just hearing keynotes all the time. And sometimes there's workshops before and after the conference, and you almost have to pay extra. But in a conference that was designed by trainers for trainers, you really got the sense that they were putting best training practices into practice during the conference based on the way that folks experienced it. So it wasn't just passive learning and listening to keynotes, and it was a special experience if you wanted to be more hands-on and apply it. It was application and behavior change by design from the beginning.
It felt like things were thoughtfully curated. It felt like things were designed, and the breakouts that I went to were designed that it wasn't like people talking at me. It was like, here are the tools that you're going to walk away with that are going to make your life better, which as a trainer myself, that's the way we design training in my team is what are people going to walk away doing to make their lives better, to make their lives easier, to a change of behavior, right?
I've been able to take a ton away, whether it's how to utilize artificial intelligence in my daily work, being that we are so small and scrappy. How can I give the best prompts to get the best outcome, to where I have to do just the minor amounts of editing? How can I use these features and functions of things like Articulate 360 or gamification, or how can I find the best learning management system, or how can I use my LMS in a way that's going to be better and more insightful and more intuitive for my team?
And they're hands-on, you do case studies, it's a lot of group work, but I take a lot of notes because it is so overwhelming. You'll get home and then it's like, hey, how was chart? What did you learn? And you're just like, I don't know. It just all happens so fast.
Aside from the design of the sessions themselves, one thing that I found that also really separates chart was the experience of vendors. You got the sense that the vendors that were the most successful there were really a part of the industry. They weren't there just to try to sell something. They were there, and it was honestly hard to tell who was a vendor and who was a participant, a trainer working in the industry, because the vendors that were really good really cared about the industry and were there trying to solve problems as well, not just trying to sell something.
That's where a lot of the vendors come into play, because we're hearing the same things and we take that back to our team and say, you know, these were the top 5 things that I kept hearing at this conference. How can we help our industry with some of these challenges, or from a technology standpoint, how can we better support them?
So first of all, the connections that you can make from a vendor standpoint are pretty great, right? And so again, we're using this company that we're going to be using for 3 years total. So that was invaluable.
Okay, so the best vendors are definitely there to help, and folks are finding value from those vendors and signing up for long contracts. So that's win-win for everybody. But just like the intentionality behind the design of the teaching sessions, there was a lot of intentionality behind the design of the vendor sessions. It wasn't like a lot of other conferences where it's kind of off in a corner with rows and rows of conference booths. It was very intentionally designed to create that connection.
The way Chart runs their resource gallery compared to the way most conferences run their vendor booths is they really encourage folks to actually go and make those connections through things like the raffle. Most vendors do a raffle. We've given away an iPad the last couple of charts. And it is just an organic way to stimulate the conversation.
From the smallest nuggets to the multi-year contracts that you can get from connections that you meet, it's really incredible, the tools that you walk with.
So there's intentionality behind the vendor experience. There's intentionality behind the learning experience. What really separates Chart, though, and is really hard to describe, but we're going to do our best here, is the intentionality behind the human experience.
You know, think about a young person, they go to a conference and they're just sitting here listening to all these people. It can be intimidating. I know I was when I went to my first few conferences. I'm like, wow, who are these people and how do I fit in here, right? But that's why Chart's different than other conferences, because we have the social aspect, the connecting, the building your network. And all of a sudden you realize, wait, I am them. I am these people that I was looking up to. I just didn't realize it, right?
It's your people. It's the people that create the training. It's the people that understand why the training is important. It's the people that are passionate about doing things the right way. And of course, you get the energetic side of everybody as well. Even the introverts are pretty extroverted when it comes to the conference side of things.
I feel like when you're there, you're like, oh, these are my people. You know, these are, you know, I'm a huge hospitality nerd. I always been, and it's just, okay, these are the people that feel the way you do, think the way you do.
It definitely feels like my community, my people. It is the thing that I look forward to the most, whether it's the winter or the summer conference.
The great thing about Chart is not only is it a community of like-minded people that are very similar to yourself that you can learn from, grow with, enjoy being around. it recharges that battery and almost reignites that flame, that spark that you have inside.
These relationships that I built with Chart, it has really helped me in my career, right? I know I have this network of professionals that I can reach out to and talk to, and we share things with each other that really help us. And that's how we become stronger leaders and better friends, honestly.
From the moment that I walked in there, oh, is this your first Chart? You're a first-time FTA, first-time attendee. I was welcomed. I was welcomed with open arms. People wanted to get to know me.
First of all, what's great about our Chart conferences is it's built into our agendas, right? Where we give those networking opportunities and meeting different people. We actually have a first-time attendee breakout where we bring members of Chart and they become truly an advisor during the conference to these first-time attendees. But what's great about our conference is it's not just about the learning, it's about experience. And we have a service event where we go out into the community and connect. And we do events that are really just a social setting to have a good time.
But then it's also just fun in a way that I don't think a lot of conferences really have. They might have, a lot of the conferences I go to, they have the networking happy hour where everyone stands with their glass of wine, and that's nice. But Chart really pushes you to interact with each other while it still feels organic.
So there's this difference then that I started to realize that folks at Chart, while all of this intentionality is put behind the conference, the vendor experience, the learning experience, kind of the human experience, it's the people putting on the conference and creating those experiences that make all the difference. And what's amazing to me about this conference, and I think this is really at the core of it, is that all of those people are volunteering and they want to volunteer and they're driving to volunteer because they realize that, one, it feels good to create experiences for others. They're all in the hospitality industry, so that's at the core of who they are. But they also realize that in doing so, they get even more out of the conference themselves.
One of the things we do at our conferences is we have a volunteer list, right? So we let people know before they ever get here, here's some things you can actually be involved in the conference. So there's more things to do than just attend the conference.
One of the best ways to really capture the essence of Chart, as well as really reap all the benefits that Chart has, is to be involved in some way. And there's multiple ways that you can do that. So it's as simple as writing a blog for Chart. You could go to, we have regional training forums that take place throughout the country. They're all free, which is kind of one of the cool things that you can attend one of these. You can learn with other people that are local within your area. You can go to one of the conferences where there's folks coming in from nationally. But being involved in some way, and there's no lack of opportunity, you all of a sudden get it on the insider track to be able to connect with other folks. And all of a sudden, people are approaching you, they're connecting with you. You learn so much more by being involved.
What you put in is what you get out at Chart. So it's a little bit more than just showing up with your suitcase, but really trying to meet as many people as possible and trying to help. It is such a special event. And I think if all of the vendors, if all of the attendees volunteer in some way or do something to go above and beyond, it's just that much more successful for everyone.
The grand difference that I found with the Chart conference and what makes it so different and what makes it so special is that it's not about the conference. I think this conference for them is a twice a year gathering place where you come together to reconvene with friends and with people across the industry. And it feels like they're friends because they actually are friends. And it feels like they've got deep relationships and deep connections with each other because they actually have deep relationships and deep connections with each other. And that's all because of all of this intentionality that's put into the conference, but also everything else that comes around it. And I think that's why it feels so different in the end. When you've got folks that live and breathe hospitality every day, creating a conference for each other, what ends up happening is something far more than a conference. You start building these relationships and you start building friendships that last well beyond the conference, which is exactly what it's all about. And I think this story, more than anything else we've heard so far, sums up why Chart is such a special conference.
As I think back of that very first conference I went to in Boca Raton, I met a gentleman named Corbin Nichols.
My first Chart conference was 2018 in Boca Raton.
And for two people that went to that conference in Boca Raton as first-time attendees, we had a little bit of a different experience.
I was just too cool for school. I was there because I was being asked to be there. I was being told I had to be there. And really, I had no desire to be there. I thought that, everything that I did was perfect. And how could I learn from any of these other people in the industry whatsoever? So I spent the majority of the time in my own pocket, my own team, and really didn't interact with anybody.
He was not as quite the extrovert, where I am quite honestly a huge extrovert. And
it wasn't until the last day that I was doing a team activity. There was a team building game.
We ended up at the same table at that conference.
And I started meeting other people and realizing, oh, maybe I was kind of wrong about this. Like, these people are pretty cool. They're energetic. They're the type of people that I would like to surround myself with. And then I just stopped going to Chart because I changed career paths. I went into operation services versus training. Fast forward to joining Piata and taking over this training function. It was like, I need as much help as possible. Not only am I just kind of by myself doing this, and I had a very small team at that point in time, I didn't even know where to begin. So it was like, let me get back into Chart.
Fast forward a few years later at the Austin conference, I was fortunate enough to be the registration director. And who walks up to that table? And I immediately knew who he was. I'm like, Corbin, how are you?
The person that I ran into the moment I got there and went straight to the registration table, the person that greeted me was the same person that I had played this table game, this team building game with in Boca in 2018. Fast forward 4 years later, they remembered my name. They remembered the last time that they saw me. They were welcoming. And it was just like, wait, where am I? This doesn't make sense comparatively to what I've been through in my life before.
It's amazing that how one conversation can change your life, both professionally and personally.
Immediately, it changed my life. Like the conversations that you can have in that moment and realize, wow, this community is something that's totally different. It smacked me in the face.
As you look at what Chart can do and all the opportunities, two people in the same industry, two different companies, different parts of the United States, found a way to connect through Chart. I think our story truly defines what Chart does for you, because we've both grown our careers, we've supported each other in our careers, and personally, we've become great friends.
So here's the Chart Conference Simplified. First, this is a conference that is built by trainers for trainers, and that shows because the instructional methodology and everything that's brought to it is very focused on the right training principles. Second, this is built by people that live and breathe hospitality every single day. So from the way people are greeted when they enter the conference to the experiences throughout, it's got hospitality at the core. And third, every single bit of this conference is hyper intentional, from the amount of people they bring in to the content that is being displayed throughout the conference to the vendors and the way that you interact with vendors throughout the conference, all the way through to the human and social connectivity that happens. It's all intentional. None of it just happens by chance. It is all hyper planned and very focused. So when you have trainers building content that live and breathe hospitality and are hyper intentional, what you get is the Chart Conference. And this is similar to a restaurant that is amazing in hospitality that creates this loyalty, this fan base around it. And that's the feeling that you get at Chart. Because when you go, people are going year after year. It's like return visitors to a restaurant. People are coming back to this conference year after year. This is a twice a year meeting spot for fans of the industry, trainers within the industry, to learn more about the industry, to get better at their craft, but frankly, to reunite with friends and create relationships that are well beyond work. And I think that's the most amazing part of it. That's the essence of what makes Chart special, is that it's more than just work. It's more than just learning about your craft. There's actual human connection here. And that's where you can tell that this is by folks that live and breathe hospitality every day. And you're surrounded by hundreds of people that believe the same thing. And in that is something really special.